this is David Owen.
And this is Marian Cowagowan.
And this is You Show Me Yours, a podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date, except for the month of April, where we talk about the movies that we loved after the first date. It's after the first date month where we break our only real rule, which is movies pre-2003, before we met. And we throw that out the window in the month of April because we met in April. And here we are. And this time, I was made to watch Gone Girl.
Yep. It's the movie that makes you say, oh my God, I'm never getting married and I'm never sleeping with another person in the same room ever again because I don't trust anyone or anything.
Yes.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I've seen this several times. It turns out you have seen it. We'd never seen it together.
Yeah.
I really hope that not many people saw this on a date because holy smokes, that puts a chill on things. If you're not familiar, this is the 2014 adaptation of Gillian Flynn's novel from a few years before. Basically, a wife frames her cheating husband for her murder and then bamboozles him into staying with her. And he's under her control because I don't know. And she's convinced this is like some way of how they demonstrate their love for each other is to stay married even though they hate each other.
Yes.
Basically.
Sort of.
This is a great movie. I would say very not uplifting at all. But if you can get past that, it's captivating despite its length. It's like 2.5 hours, but it doesn't drag at all. And it's fascinating because there's no clear, I don't think there's a clear good guy in this whole thing. I think there are a couple of clear villains. But there's lots of, what would you do in the situation? Would you, lots to chew on, I think. What did you know about this? Well, clearly you'd seen it. What are your thoughts about this going in?
Yeah, I mean, I watched, I'm a big fan of David Fincher, the director, so I've seen all of his movies, many of them multiple times. This one and Zodiac, I would say I've rewatched the least. I'd only ever seen this movie one time. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, yeah, like I knew what was happening in the movie. I knew what was going to happen, but there were plenty of it there's plenty of parts of it that I had forgotten. As the cat activates your phone.
The cat started my Instagram Reels playing.
Did the cat just get face recognized by your phone?
I think she might have. I don't know.
We found out that the cat can spoof your face.
That's troubling in so many ways. Speaking of cats, there's a cat in this movie.
Yes.
And I don't know. I don't remember if that's in the book or, what we're supposed to think about that. But I was like, if Nick Dunn can take care of a cat, he's clearly not that bad of a guy.
Yeah.
Nick is played by Ben Affleck, which I think is just, perfectly cast. Nick is supposed to be this like Midwestern guy who's sort of play acting at being a suave New Yorker. And Ben Affleck seems perfect for that, even though he's not Midwestern at all.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like this forecasts a little bit of his life with J-Lo, where he just wants to live in Boston, go to Dunkin', drink at Sam Adams, go to the Patriots games. And she's like, no, we need to dress up and go to the Grammys or whatever. That's totally what J-Lo sounds like.
That's her voice.
That's actually what she sounds like. She's heavily iTuned.
Yeah.
iTuned?
iTuned.
What's
Auto-tuned.
Thank you. I was like, wait, that's not it. I knew it was something tuned.
Something tuned.
Yeah, her voice is completely tuned.
Yeah.
For everything.
Oh, 100%.
And one of our favorite cameos is Tyler Perry as the lawyer.
Cameo just / anytime he shows up in a movie that isn't a Medea movie.
Yeah, he's not in drag, so and I thought he was actually pretty good in this.
Yeah, he's not a bad actor,
he
was I don't remember the movie being that good, but he was good as Alex Cross in that when they brought that back recently. Like the movie doesn't stand out, but I remember his acting being not the reason that I don't remember the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen any of the Medea movies. They don't strike me as especially good, but I don't think that they're, to whatever degree they are or are not good, they're not doomed by his performance. So,
no,
Medea's not my cup of tea, but anyway, I enjoy him in this. Amy is played by Rosamund Pike, who I have not seen in a lot of things. I know she was one of the sisters in Pride and Prejudice, so she's got that going for her. And then Desi Collins, Amy's ex-boyfriend, played by Neil Patrick Harris, which is I feel I know him as he's always a grown-up Doogie Howser.
Yes,
but also knowing that in real life he's gay, that made it hard for me to accept his character as someone who's in love with Amy the whole time. I don't know, but
maybe.
Anyway, it would be interesting to see that with an actor that I knew less about.
Yeah,
but and the Desi character comes in because after Amy's plan to hide away from Nick goes awry, she convinces Desi to hide her, and he ends up, he's always been secretly obsessed with her, and he says things like, he'll never find you. This house has lots of cameras. You're safe here. What he means is no one can get in, but what it actually means is no, she can't get out. So she's stuck. And so she pretends to him that she's in love with him and they want to go away together and, blah, blah, blah. And she kills him during sex. Mm-hmm. And then escapes with his blood all over her and his semen inside her, and tells everybody that he kidnapped her and held her hostage and raped her for a month straight. Yeah. And that's how she got home.
We're cart horse here. If you've never seen this movie before, this is a movie about a man's wife who gets kidnapped or disappears.
Yes.
And it turns out she actually framed him for her disappearance.
Well, I said that earlier, but yes.
Okay, it didn't register with me. So then, she goes on all these misadventures. Yeah, maybe it just, I don't know. Maybe I was sitting here going, did we actually say what this movie's about?
Yeah. And she, holy smokes, she is dedicated to this whole project. She says, to fake a murder convincingly, you have to be dedicated and detail oriented. Oh, yeah. And she it seems like she plans it for a year. Reads lots of books about murders and has a calendar with all the dates for things to do, and she has a getaway car and she has a lot of cash, and she's thought of all the things that are gonna make her husband look guilty. And she knows him well enough to know what he's gonna do too, and sort of exploits his tendencies to make so that he makes himself look guilty. And you kind of are like, if you would just use your powers for good, you could run the world and solve so many problems, but you're doing this instead. I don't get it. It's very of its time because the two of them, when they start out, they're writers living in New York City, and they both lose their jobs around 2008 when townspeople lost their jobs. They don't make much of it in the movie, but in the book. Well, so Amy's job is writing personality quizzes for women's magazines, which you are not a women's magazine devotee as I am, but there's a lot of I don't know what should your signature scent be? You know, whatever. She does that. And that's apparently all she does. I didn't realize that could be a total job, but that's what she does. And in the book, her diary entries are punctuated with choose A, choose B, choose C, and it's a little much. So I'm glad they cut that down for the movie. But the whole idea of people losing their jobs and then they have to sell her brownstone and they take a bath on it, that's very much a thing of its time.
Yeah.
So I said earlier, there doesn't seem to be a clear good guy in this movie. To you, is there a clear villain?
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not let's make sure we're on the same page. Amy is a sociopath.
I'm not defending her. Don't get me wrong.
She's a villain beyond villains. She is a sinister. She's the point that we meet her before she's done this, she has already done whatever she did to the first guy in high school and framed another guy for rape and ruined his life. She is completely 100% the villain, like, and 100% the evil, not just the villain. She's evil.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right then. No, she's obviously evil and awful and villainous. I just don't think that she's the only villain.
I don't think Nick is a villain. I think Nick is just a bad husband.
Okay.
He's not a good guy by any means. He is a bumbling, doofus who, doesn't do the right stuff. I mean, he is like, there's a point where he is talking to Amy during an interview at a point, Nick figures this out. But they can't really tell the police because it's not, they don't have enough evidence. And he figures out that she's staged this whole kidnapping, and he's on an interview talking effectively to her through the interview. And he says all of the stuff that is true, that he made mistakes and he's dumb and he didn't he didn't appreciate what he had and all these things. That's his only crime, is just being a bad husband, for which the penalty is a divorce. Well, yeah. And a separation or therapy or
intense therapy for everybody involved. Well, yeah, it does. Every so often you hear about, someone who, I don't know, shoplifted or whatever, and they get chased by a store owner and they get killed, and you're like, and people say, oh, they shouldn't have stolen anything, and you're like, since when do we have the death penalty for shoplifting? And this is similar. Yeah, and punishment does not really fit the crime. However, she's got her whole speech that is like, I changed who I was for him. I am a different person now. That the person I was doesn't exist, and that's murder, which does not justify anything that she's done, but
it's also the thing. I mean, again, like I say, she has no redeeming qualities. Even her justification for doing this is 100% her choice. She did that because she thinks that's what marriage is. In her sociopathic brain, she thinks that marriage is two people that come together and pretend to be the dream person, the dream mate for the other person. And if they won't, then she thinks it's her job to force them to do that, to mold them into that. So she, just like with the first and second boyfriends, she gave them things, ties, try to make them more sophisticated. She tried to mold them into what she wanted. And the way that she talks about Nick is like, it's the first time that she felt like she was also open to molding herself for the other person. Like, he was intriguing enough to her because he was, I guess, different enough than from the first two, that she tried to change herself to be more of what he would have wanted, which is, getting into the relationship under false pretenses. Like, he tried to pretend to be what he thought would impress her, and she tried to pretend to be what she thought would impress him, just like he says, she says in her speech. Yeah. And so it's not like there's under no circumstances is her justification that she gives like approaching anything valid. It's literally, like I said, I'm steering away from using the word crazy because I know it's becoming less and less socially acceptable to throw that word around, but she's crazy. She's batshit insane, like manipulative, sociopathic, just she's beyond. And this is not like, this could be a man. Like, the character is written the way the character's written. She's manipulative on every level. And it's not even to say like she's a whole, crack her open. Like, she's a whole study in psychology, because her parents messed her up because she's Amazing Amy from this book series that her mom writes. Yeah. And Amy is always better than her. When she quits the cello, Amy becomes a child prodigy at the cello. She gets cut from the volleyball team. Amy goes all state. Amazing Amy goes all state. Yeah. So she's messed up from the get-go. Like, she has been manipulated, and you know, her mother has created something is culpable in all of this. But yeah, no, like she's.
Yeah, I don't think that either Nick or Amy was set up for a healthy marriage by their respective parents. We don't get into it a ton, but Nick's father is an asshole.
Sure.
And I think, and I'm trying to. It's been a long time since I read the book. I think the book goes into more of how that marriage ended and how it was extremely unhappy before it ended. And his mom is, I don't know. Well, like in the movie, he says, my mom thought it was important for me to be nice, get along with everybody, blah, blah, blah. But then he's got in this everything with his father, like his father is angry all the time and just tells everyone to sort of fuck off. Even people are trying to help him. He's not set up for emotional stability by his parents.
But he's not, but he's remarkably stable, all things considered.
While things are going well, yeah. I mean...
Well, no, I mean, like, yeah, he has a temper, he flies off the handle and stuff like that, but he's not... There was never a moment within the course of their relationship where he was plotting to frame her for his murder.
Not yet.
You know, well, yeah, not yet. Who knows beyond that? You know, yeah, he is guilty of being a bad husband. Like, you know, like you were saying, make the punishment fit the crime.
Yeah. So there's a point where, so we are... Throughout the first half of the movie, we're seeing on film what's in Amy's diary. And we learn later that parts of it are fake.
Yeah.
But the early part is true. We don't know actually where things tip over, but the first couple are true. And you see her writing in the diary. And so you can see like the tail end of previous entries and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And there's, at the end of one of them, there's something along the lines of, ordinarily I wouldn't like blah, 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 but with Nick, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
And I think there is something to that. Yeah. And maybe it was, you know, Call of Duty tournament, whatever. I ordinarily wouldn't like this, but I like it because it's with him.
Yeah.
And that is a sign of a healthy relationship, at least. Now, who knows how long that continues?
Right, but she doesn't understand what a healthy relationship is. Like, she even says, "I changed myself, and I admittedly liked some of it. Mm-hmm. You know, I did the things that he wanted to do, and sometimes I liked them, which is what you're supposed to do in a relationship." She just doesn't realize that you're not supposed to change yourself to pretend you're a different person, but you're supposed to partake in the interests of your partner. And occasionally you find something that you enjoy.
Well, and here's where I think that had they stayed in New York, it would have been a rough patch. And then when they found jobs again, they would have found their footing again. I think it's, I don't know, do we say that the Midwest killed their marriage? That it was where he had a purpose and she did not? Like, I don't know what it was. But I think it was the move that signaled, that amped up all of this stuff. Maybe he went back to the person he had been when he lived there before and she couldn't mold it. I don't know what.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're onto something there in the scenario that we're presented. I think it is a pivotal factor. You know, I would say that she, my theory is that she started planning this, when he didn't get one of the clues on a previous anniversary hunt.
That was when they were in Missouri, though.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, I feel like all of that coupled together is like the triggering point. So, I mean, I'm saying that's when I think she started planning this a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. I think that's the point when she started planning this, what we see in the events that we see in the movie. I think you're probably right that the moving to Missouri contributed to it heavily, but she is not a normal, stable person. So this was going to happen at some point. At some point, he was not going to live up to her expectations. She was going to understand, just like the previous two, that he was not, I think, though she could mold Desi, he wasn't the man that she wanted in other ways that she couldn't change. Mm-hmm. And the second guy, whose name escapes me, she couldn't mold though he may have been the man she wanted in other ways, which is why she got rid of him.
Well, he was resistant to being molded.
Exactly. She couldn't mold him. I think Nick was the perfect combination of the man that she want. And I think Neil Patrick Harris's casting is no mistake. I think he is cast in that role because he is slight of build, because he is, no offense intended here as much as I can say it, because he's gay, because he comes off as, he's gay psychologically.
Well, it would be interesting to get a take on this from someone who doesn't know anything about who Neil Patrick Harris is off screen.
Or with another actor.
Yeah. I don't know.
But I think no matter what, they would have cast a more slight guy, because Ben Affleck is huge. He's like 6'2" or something, and he's like, he's wide.
Well, and what's funny, a lot of the stills for this, and I think they take them from, there's twice in the movie he's outside, like he's brought the trash cans out on trash day and he's standing there and he's doing this thing with his arms, and it's kind of like a Charles Atlas pose. Like he's kind of holding them out to the side, like spread. And it's almost to demonstrate, he's almost looks like he's flexing to like demonstrate his muscles. So he looks pretty jacked there.
Yeah. And his physique, it changes. I wonder, like, some of this might be reshoots or not, because there are a couple of points where he almost seems to have a little gut.
Yeah.
And then there are points where he's jacked.
Well,
and they're like, oh, I wonder if that's a reshoot.
And I think there was definitely some time passing, because Rosamund Pike was pregnant when this was shot. And there are times now, knowing that, there are times when I can tell.
Yeah.
And times when I can't. And some of that is costuming and, various things. But there are definitely times where I'm like, oh, that's like a 4-month bump under that shirt. Okay.
Yeah. And I wonder if that's, if they weren't trying to explain that. Because I always, not knowing that she was pregnant in real life, I took the part where she, as soon as she's away from him, she immediately starts eating Kit Kats and junk food. Mm-hmm. And there are scenes where she is away from, where she's hiding out in this cabin, where, she looks, I looked at her a couple times, I was like, she got a little belly. And I was like, is she trying to simulate pregnancy weight for some reason here? Like,
no.
Right. But
I think that's just a coincidence because nobody gains weight that fat. Well, maybe if you're a size 2, you do, but I don't think you gain that weight overnight.
I'm just saying it was, I'm like, I already know this is a sinister person. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking, like, is she trying to simulate pregnancy weight? Because let's say that she gets found and she has to spin some story like she has to at the end. Mm-hmm. She looks the appropriate amount of pregnant, because now America knows she's whatever, 7 weeks pregnant or whatever. Yeah. And she's trying to look the part just in case she gets caught or what have you. Like, but at the same time, I don't find a lot of evidence to support that. But when I saw her and she looked like that, I thought, she's been eating a bunch of junk food. Is she trying to simulate pregnancy weight? Although I could also accept the eating the junk food as this release of, like, I don't have to stay a size 2 anymore. Although we're never shown in the movie the demands that she puts on to Nick. We're never shown him, just like, you were saying before, we're never shown her manipulate Nick. We're never shown Nick demanding those things either. We're never shown him, wanting her to be like, there's, again, Nick is not the good guy here, but in the early version that we're shown, he seems completely infatuated with her, and mesmerized, and probably would have been okay had she just continued to be that person and not tried to be his, this fake thing that she thought he wanted to be, including, skinny or whatever.
Well, I think that's the point, is she was the cool girl from the beginning. So he never had to say, hey, blah, blah, blah. But given that we saw Desi within a couple of minutes saying, oh, you should do all these things, we never saw Nick do those things. So part of me thinks that's either deliberate, or if we're meant to think that Nick was controlling of her, it's an oversight to have left that out. However, that may be just, if I feel like if you ask most women, they'll be like, yeah, of course men want you to be these things. It's just so much in the culture that the man who doesn't care about these is the exception. not the rule.
Yeah.
Men don't have to say that they want those things. We just assume that they do, and it's because it's so baked in.
Right or wrong, you assume.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, we were just bringing up this. We've just both now brought up a couple different times this point. This movie is like the epitome of unreliable narrator.
Yeah,
especially during the watching of it. A lot of it gets straightened out after the break when they reveal that she's kidnapped herself.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it gets, sorted out, but it never really gets fully sorted. And you're shown things and you don't know from whose perspective you're seeing it. Like you are shown Nick pushing Amy down. We don't know whose perspective that's from. And later Nick denies that it happened. We're shown it as she's writing in her diary. But we don't know, the validity of that. We can assume that everything she states as much in her diary past a certain point is made up.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know. So we can do all this. We can speculate whatever we want. Like we can't even really know for sure what perspective we're being shown of the stuff that happens in the
present,
the cabin with Desi or the present. Or the present. Though it, nothing is presented in that stuff that is unreliable.
Mm-hmm.
We're not presented her narrative up until a certain point. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're given what seems to be the real truth of what's happening. And then she takes a hard left into, her plan.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can never be sure in this movie of any of it, of any, because multiple characters are lying multiple different times in multiple different ways, or their motivations are unclear. The only character that seems to be 100% pure is his sister.
Yeah.
In terms of she doesn't seem to, lie about anything. I mean, she's forced into like keeping secrets at a certain point, but no one ever asks her. Like, but you get the feeling if someone said, "Is your brother having an affair?" after she found out about it, she would have said, "No."
Yeah. I also like the female detective.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I like that actor. I've seen her in several other things. But I like that she's not rushing to judgment, even though her partner
Oh yeah, he's 100%.
I adore the part where he's like, "Oh, my wife says he's guilty," and she's like, "Oh well, if Tiffany says," like you can tell she has disdain for this character that we never meet. That's the only time she's mentioned, and I'm like, okay, I know who Tiffany is right there.
And I love the interaction between her and her partner because there's a point where she says, "Do you know how hard it is to get a murder conviction without a body?" And he says, "No."
Yeah.
And you get the feeling she does, obviously.
Well, and there's a point when he's introduced as an officer and she's a detective. She's his superior, and she is willing to remind him of that. Just like at some point, she's like, "Don't ever talk to me like that. Don't do that." Like he's kind of a loser, but she's pretty badass. When she comes back and she's like, "Well, yeah, clearly you didn't kill your wife."
Yeah,
like, if
like,
she doesn't,
we're buddies now.
Yeah, she doesn't full on say sorry, but she, I think she's remorseful.
Well, because she was following she understands
evidence.
She was manipulated too.
Yeah.
Like at a certain point, she gets it.
Yeah,
not at that point where she does that, but by the end of the movie, she understands that she was following the clues exactly as she was intended to.
Yeah,
and there were some things that went out of sequence that allowed Nick to understand her Amy's plan before it all came true, but still all of the pieces all the breadcrumbs and clues that they were intended to follow, they followed to lead up to his arrest like she intended.
I like to think that the detective is going to spend a lot of time at the bar now.
All right, yeah.
And she won't ever pay for her drinks.
Yeah.
But she also will tip really well because they owe each other, basically. So back to Desi for a second. There's the scene where Amy and Nick meet at a party, and it's really kind of cute the way they meet. But he's saying like, "Oh, which one of these is your type?" and points him out and points to one guy who just looks like, clearly an intellectual who loves the sound of his own voice.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, is it this guy who's bloviating about Proust?" And no, that's not your type. Blah 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 blah. And then when she's at the cabin with Desi, he says something like, "Oh, you're not bored here?" And she says, "Oh, how could I be bored? You can talk about blah, 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 blah. You can talk about Proust in French." And I was that's not a coincidence. That was,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, I think, like I said with Desi, I think he's a failed experiment of hers. Like she manipulated him into the man she wanted him to be, and then realized that it didn't make up for his other shortcomings. And also, I think that reveals even more about her nature, because Nick says that as a joke to demean that guy, but she has potentially manipulated Desi into being that. So she thought she wanted that intellectual, got it, and then seemed to realize that she didn't.
Maybe.
And went for something else.
I don't know if any high schoolers really get into Proust.
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying
I've never read Proust in my life. It's just like a code word for pretentious.
Yeah, I'm not saying that she specifically said, "Here, learn French and do this."
Yeah,
but that she created, she set in motion the person that he is as an adult now when we encounter him.
Maybe possibly, but I think as long as things were going well in her marriage to Nick, she was willing to accept things like, he's a sports fan, whatever, plays video games, as just a quirk.
Yeah.
I think when things were unpleasant, that's when all of her willingness to put up with whatever just went away.
Yeah, I think
the fact that he was cheating on her. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she was disarmed by him.
Yeah,
I think in a lot of ways, at least that's what I get from it, and that's why this version of her hadn't reared its ugly head before it did. The 5 years or whatever, however long, I don't know if it's they're together 2 years, then they get married. Are they married 5 years and together 7?
Yes.
Okay. So I think until the point that it started breaking down and she started realizing that, what she had quote unquote lost. Again, I think the thing that you have to remember about her as a character, or that I think you have to remember about any sociopath, and they make a great point of saying this in the movie, is a sociopath, when they're in public, they're putting on a human skin. There's a point where they're observing Nick's behavior during television appearances and stuff, and they say like, I don't know, just the way he's acting, and somebody comments it might be what's his name, the lawyer.
Oh, I think it's Tanner. Yeah.
I think he says you'd have to be a sociopath to act normal.
Yeah.
And that's so telling and so insightful into the whole, the theming of the whole movie and the character of Amy. She is spent her entire life putting on a human skin and doing what she thinks is normal, down to the fact that she believes that what you do in a marriage, and she says exactly this, is you both pretend to be the person that the other one wants you to be. And that's how you have a happy marriage. And by the end of it, she has exactly that. She has a man who is willing to pretend to be publicly exactly what she wants him to be, and wear the tie that she bought him and the watch that she bought him. And he is, now on some level, there are, right or wrong, there are going to be women out there that desire him because he was so faithful and he never stopped looking for her. And he didn't actually kill her. And, maybe he infidelity, but now he realizes that he's wrong.
Now he appreciates what he has.
And she has this thing that other people would covet, and that's all her putting on a human skin. Like, that's all her pretending, doing what she thinks regular people do. Like, she's incapable of having a normal human relationship with anybody because she doesn't possess, assuming my armchair diagnosis of her as a sociopath is correct, like, she's not capable of normal human emotion. And she never seems to, she shows no regret for the murder of Desi.
No, that's
not
really,
even a moment's pause.
That's really chilling. Like, she does the, sort of limping walk inside. And then as soon as they're inside, all the pretenses are gone, and she bounds up the stairs and washes his blood off. Like,
but I mean, like, right after she kills him. In fact, I would say, and I don't know what the intention of this scene is or not, she slits his throat, and then she flips him over, and I would say she finishes before getting up. Because that's how I interpret that scene.
Oh, I just thought it was to get more of his blood on her.
I don't know. Because that's, this is what, when we're talking about her and what she's done or hasn't done, you have to understand these are the things that color my image of what she is.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how I interpret that scene. I interpret that scene as she slits another human's throat. He bleeds all over her.
Mm-hmm.
She flips him over because the blood's not going to get on her more easily when he's not on top of her. And then she seems to undulate a bit before getting up and walking away in a completely callous way from his dead or dying body.
I don't want to think about that.
That's what I see when I see that scene. I don't know if that's the intention or not. And that's why when I talk about her, I talk about someone who I can, without a doubt, believe was constantly manipulating Nick to some degree. I think less degree than she manipulated her other men, because I think in a lot of ways she probably didn't need to. When she meets him, he's already he's in New York. He's already relatively well dressed. He's not well read, but she takes care of that. She, he's not, she's, teaching him how to pronounce quinoa and, that it's not a fish and all these things. She's handled the little things that weren't quite right about him, and she's happy with the rest of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm uncomfortable with the idea that, how to phrase this?
Mm-hmm.
I'm uncomfortable with the idea that helping somebody broaden their horizons or improve themselves or anything is manipulation.
She's not.
She's not what?
She's not helping him improve himself or broaden his horizons.
Eye of the beholder.
She is doing that for herself. So I understand. This is what I say. I think we have a disconnect here when we talk about this, because you are imbuing her actions with the same motivations that you would have if you undertook those actions. And I will say it again for like the 5th time. She's putting on a human skin. Her motivations are not your motivations. So I can completely understand why, when you think about it from your perspective, why you would think like, she's just helping him. She's telling him how a word is pronounced that he doesn't know how it's pronounced. If she's buying him a tie or a watch, she's doing it because it's a loving gift. I just don't buy that. I don't buy any of that. I don't buy that she's ever done anything other than move to Missouri for him. And that's the thing that unravels their relationship. Yeah. So the only thing she's ever done for him is the thing that leads to that ultimately is the jumping off point. I would still contend that him missing that clue is the thing that we're at the point at which she started planning this. But I think the move is, as you were saying, is the catalyst that at least, started the smoke.
I thought it was the affair that really kicked everything off, but I think those are only about 6 months apart. So, but speaking of those,
I think the affair probably put it into overdrive or whatever, but I wonder, it's hard to say because we don't have enough information, I, like I said, that's just a theory. Like I've got no evidence to back up the fact but again, thinking about her, that's the thing, because again, what does she want? She wants a man that knows her well enough to pretend to be exactly what she wants. And that's what she gets in the end. So him missing the clue, he should know her better than that. She's been teaching him and he should know that. And missing that clue is
Well, speaking of the move to Missouri, though, I love the choice of set for their house, because it is this god-awful McMansion.
Oh, yeah.
So ostentatious, way too big for 2 people and a cat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's at one point he's showing the cops around, and he says, "Oh, and that's the cat's room."
Yeah.
Which is basically the litter box is there, and which just screams too much space.
Oh yeah.
They each have their own room as an office. They're it's all very like stainless steel and granite, and that it was foreclosed on.
Oh yeah.
And that's why it's for rent. I feel like we've talked about this in some of our earlier episodes, where you want to put a detail in that if you know the time, you're like, oh, I know that exactly. This is one of those things. Like,
oh yeah,
you don't have to say, and none of that's really relevant to the story, but I know exactly that some wealthy family lived in that house. It was foreclosed on, and then it was available for rent, and they're trying to live up to their standards of coming from New York. That's why the Arnton house goes. which is very modest.
Yeah. Or his dad's house, which
Right.
presumably, we don't know when all that stuff with his dad went down, but
presumably it was vacant.
It was potentially vacant when they moved there and could have easily lived there.
Yeah. But yeah, I adore the choice of that house, and it's just awful. It's like a corner lot, and the one side is all garage.
Oh yeah, no,
and it's just
it's a perfect
inspired.
it's a perfect choice for the house, and it's this big 5 or 6 bedroom house, and seemingly she has no plans for kids.
Yeah.
Eventually she uses the kid as a bargaining chip.
Right.
But
and then what is she doing all day? How is that a plan? Like, your husband owns a bar and you're just not working. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
In that huge house? I don't understand.
That's why I would almost put that, the start of all this planning, because she's shown to be like planning it to a huge degree, like Post-it notes, like she's after your heart here. She has checklists and Post-it notes all over calendars.
And she does one better. She doesn't have it in a Google Doc like I do. So it's untraceable. Yeah, I was noticing they pan over all these books that she has about murders, and they're all purchased.
Yeah.
They're not from the library.
Yes,
so there's no record.
Yeah.
One assumes she paid cash when she bought the books. She paid cash for the car.
Oh yeah, no, like she callously figured. Honestly, it's funny because it reminds me of myself. Like when I get into something, I get completely into it, and she clearly studied everything about framing your husband for your murder. And what she has to study is all of the failures. So she, the materials that you can gather for study are the materials that will teach her what not to do, the mistakes not to make, which I think is another great touch, that essentially she's learning how to do it by learning how not to do it.
Well, and unfortunately, and the Ellen Abbott show is clearly Nancy Grace. Yeah. So there's a lot of analysis on what not to do. So.
Oh yeah. And I love that. I meant to look her name up. That actress that plays that character.
Missy Pyle, I think.
That sounds familiar. She is just a character actor that is extremely prolific.
Yeah.
She's in so much stuff. And just every time I see her, I'm just like, oh, there she is. Hey. The Leonardo DiCaprio thing. Right. Snapping at the television. Every time, she's in Tim Burton's Willy Wonka.
She's Veruca Salt's mom.
I think so. Yeah, I think it's Veruca Salt. She's just like, and you see her all the time, everywhere. And I'm just always waiting for like when is she gonna get the J.K. Simmons kind of thing where she breaks through? It's never happened for her. But where's her breakout role where she actually becomes like a marketable name?
Yeah, I like the part she's talking about. Characters. Nick's sister, they're twins. And she has someone on the show to talk about how twins have this bond. And she's, they're extremely close, disturbingly close.
Yeah.
Like she knows exactly what she can say and what she can't say and what she can get away with. And
her real life counterpart.
Yes. And later Nick says to her, you implied that I was having sex with my sister. And she's like, I didn't.
Yeah.
I said extremely close. Like she knows exactly what, that's perfect. Back to Amy for a second. I think the most charitable assessment of her is that she has learned to be extremely calculating in everything that she does for appearance's sake, because of her parents who were like, you have to measure up to this character that we've created. The character that is essentially based on you, but you need to measure up to the character.
Oh, yeah.
Like we see they're at a book party and her mom's like, I thought you were going to wear white to match the thing because the character's getting married. And Amy says, I thought that'd be creepy. Yes, it would have been creepy. Yes. Go with that instinct, Amy.
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% right. And I think it's sort of a perfect storm because had they not been asking her to play a character for her entire life, maybe she wouldn't have gone undiagnosed, because from the very beginning, they were teaching her how to pretend to be a human.
Yeah.
by teaching her how to pretend to be the Amy in the books.
Mm-hmm.
And she just did that until she was in adulthood and didn't understand how to do regular human emotion.
There was no book called Amazing Amy and the Cheating Husband.
Right. Yeah. And the first boyfriend and the guy who won't let you manipulate him with ties.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, she's I think she's, my 100% take is that she is, there's a mental disorder going on, but not helped by her circumstances. Like it's not enough to be tragic because she's not abused. She's not in the traditional sense. She's not, she doesn't have a hard luck life. She's just
a bit of a poor little rich girl.
Right. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Though I have to say,
but also that is exemplified throughout the movie when she's out in the real world and it's clear she's never been out in the real world. Like she's never had to think about, despite living in New York, she's clearly never had to think about the seedy underbelly of society.
I was thinking that so she's at this, like, I don't know, kind of camp hideaway where it's clear everybody seems to be getting away from something when they're there, and she befriends her neighbor, and the neighbor and the neighbor's boyfriend steal all of her money, and we don't know how much, but it's a thick
it's
thing.
Everything she had been like
and
squirreling
it's all
away
in
for this
one place. And I thought right after that I was like, doesn't that keep part of it in one place and part of it in another, and don't keep your stash all in one place.
Definitely, but she never factored that in because she had no reason to suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She believes that people are
foolable.
Yeah, foolable and gullible, and that she doesn't need to worry about this, and she doesn't need to be. She planned meticulously for everything that she could plan for, that she could get information on planning for, but like. Obviously
forgot the human factor.
Right. Forgot the human factor, or didn't study enough on like being on the run. Like she knows enough to wipe down stuff so that she doesn't leave fingerprints behind and all this kind of stuff. And eventually she ditches her car and stuff. But yeah, like she just clearly doesn't have enough research done on being on the run and the nature of people. And she's that's the one thing that ends up being her downfall, but also it's because she just doesn't have enough experience in the real world.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when New York City people move to flyover country.
Apparently.
There is, Gillian Flynn, the author, is, I think, from Chicago or St. Louis or somewhere. And then I think lived in New York, writing for Entertainment Weekly. And so I think some of the derision for the Midwest / the Missouri town, from these characters is probably some of the things that she experienced. Like people in the big cities on the East and West Coast think that everybody in the Central Time Zone is an idiot.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Like maybe if you're in Chicago, you're okay, but clearly you want to get out of there. I'm like,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's like. That's like everybody's experience. Everybody who isn't in a place thinks that the people not there are dumb.
True.
If you're in the South, it's those damn Yankees and the West Coast, blah, blah, blahs, LA, blah, blah. If you're in the North, it's everything below DC is redneck country and, Confederate flags. And
I think it's her mother. They're walking by the river and they're doing some sort of search for. It's one of those things where you don't say what you're searching for. It's really a body, but we're doing a search, blah, blah, blah. And her mother says, this place literally smells like feces. And I was like, probably because you're by the sewage treatment plant. I don't think it's not the Midwest that smells like feces. It's by the sewer. But anyway.
Yes. It's where you are.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed, and I meant to keep better track through the movie, the posters, the posters for Find Amy go up like immediately.
Yeah.
I think this is all her parents doing, which is
100%. Yeah.
It's nice, by the way, like when you're the adult, but you're like, I don't know how to do this stuff, to have an adultier adult come in and set that stuff up. Because if you disappeared, I wouldn't know, like, can I get a hotel ballroom and get a toll-free number? And how do I do that? Like I would depend on someone else to, but anyway, the posters go up and they say Amy Dunn.
Yeah.
And I noticed that one of the points when Nick is talking about her, my wife is missing, he says Amy Elliott Dunn.
Mm-hmm.
which to me, as someone who I use 3 names all the time, I just don't like the way that Marion Owen sounds. Plus, I have complicated feelings about names and blah, blah, blah. But I noticed that. And then the movie, as the movie goes on, more and more people are saying Amy Elliott Dunn. And so I don't know, maybe that's just a coincidence, but I thought that was an interesting difference that he does call her by 3 names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I could be reading more into that than is intended.
It feels like a stretch. I mean, I know where you're coming from because I know you. I just think Amy Dunn can be put in a bigger font than Amy Elliott Dunn on a poster.
Possibly.
Where your intention is to get her spotted, and understanding that when we first see the poster, it's poster size, but most of it's going to be a flyer stuck to a pole.
Yeah.
And if you can have Amy Dunn in like impact font, all caps, and it spans the page, and it's not Amy Elliott Dunn, and then that's got to be much smaller. That's my only thinking.
That's fair.
Because I feel like her parents would be like, like they resent him on some level. So like them embracing her married name is kind of like,
well, you would think, but my own father doesn't understand why I want to do 3 names. So
sure.
But yeah.
Maybe it's an older generation thing.
Who knows? I don't know. I have a little giggle every time I see the scene where her mom is speaking about her and she forged a career in journalism, and I'm like, she's writing personality quizzes.
Right.
That is no.
Like for a few years she wrote personality quizzes.
That's not, she built a life in her husband's hometown, and I'm like, no, she did not.
Yeah.
What how often did she call you and tell you these things? And then she just pauses. The website is Find Amazing Amy, in this dramatic pause, .com. So whenever I'm telling anyone a website address in my head, I'm always like, it's GoDaddy.com. Like, that's my own private little joke that I never tell anybody except for everybody here.
Yes.
So yay, have a little giggle with me.
I can't. Nothing will ever replace the Homestar Runner.
Yeah.
Homestar10.net. It's .com.
Did I tell you that I got in a reference to Homestar Runner in one of my papers for school?
Lord, no.
Yeah.
That's funny.
There was their screen names were Marzipan and Homestar. And so I put in Homestar, and I cited the Homestar Runner website. I was pretty pleased with myself.
Nice.
I could not work in a reference to Strong Bad, but yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, look up Homestar Runner.
Yeah.
And especially Teen Girl Squad. Do yourself a favor.
Yes. That's your favorite.
Crack
for sure.
up. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's see. Yeah. Would you stay in this situation?
Would I?
Yes.
I don't think Nick has any choice. So yeah, I don't know if I said this before, but I was thinking it in this whole scenario. Amy's not the one trapped in this marriage. Nick is, because there's a prenup and her name is on everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's the only one. And I do think some of the things that her name is on may have happened after she started this plan, so it looks better for her if her name is on the bar.
Some of it is just she has better credit, or
right,
she was the one who set things up. I mean, that's how it is for us. It's not.
I'm not saying everything was calculated. I just think at a certain point, maybe she was like, "Oh, and if the bar is in my name, then he looks trapped." But she's never the one trapped in this marriage. Like, she could walk away.
Yeah.
At any point, and he really can't. He can't without severe collateral damage.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like he doesn't have a choice. Me, I wouldn't have. I don't think I would have stayed, but I would have, because I have an overdeveloped sense of justice.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't have left until I knew that I could somehow expose her.
Mm-hmm.
So that, so yeah, I mean, I would have stayed under false pretenses with the intent of exposing her at some point.
Yeah. I think I would always be looking for an escape route. I'd be keeping a notepad at goes and like write everything down.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think with Nick, there is the movie doesn't get into this a ton, but I think he was felt abandoned by his father, and he doesn't want to do that to a kid. So,
sure. Yeah. I think once the kid is in play, there's a different dynamic. Yeah. But that would still create even more of a determination in me to expose her.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like I would not have rationalized it in the same way that he did. I would have, but I wouldn't have been in that situation in the first place. But, you know, if I'm putting myself in that situation, yeah, I wouldn't have rationalized it the way he did. I would have.
You would be the guy with the ties on the bed, and she would have been like, this guy's resisting. What's
yeah. Yeah, because, you know, like every attempt that you have made at turning me into your perfect mate has failed miserably.
I don't think I've tried that hard.
Yeah, I don't think either one of. I think that's why, like, our marriage is the polar opposite of this movie. Like, we accept each other for who we are. We don't really try to force our likes onto each other.
I also don't try because I know it wouldn't work. So,
well, good. I don't try because I know it wouldn't work.
There you go.
So there you go.
Last thing I want to mention, I get a kick out of this movie because Trent Reznor does the music, and I'm a 90s kid, and so it's just 9 Inch Nails for Trent Reznor.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, and granted, this music does sound a little bit 9 Inch Nails. It's not a complete departure, but it's kind of like for me, learning that there was a time when Elton John was straight. Like, it just messes with my head. Like, what?
Right. Well, yeah.
What?
Well, he's done soundtrack stuff in the past. I can't think of. I feel like there's another movie he's done stuff for, but he did the soundtrack for the '90s video game Quake, and it was this great atmospheric soundtrack.
I don't doubt that he's done a whole lot more. It was just this I knew about. I think he did The Social Network too. Actually,
yeah, he did. Yeah,
But it's just in my head, you know, Trent Reznor equals I want to fuck you like an animal, and this is just this moody, you know, like. Similar sound, but very different execution.
It's atmospheric. It's you know, it's well done. Yeah, I mean, like it's he does the thing. Sometimes bands make the mistake of thinking that what they wanted is the band, and like what they want is their like musical sensibilities. They don't necessarily want them to make a bunch of, you know, basically their songs minus words for the movies. And he does a good job of understanding that, what is actually right, the score that's right for any given movie. Yeah,
no, I think it's very fitting for the movie. It's just an extra little frisson for me of like, I knew him before he did this. So, well, folks, we would love to know what you think about Gone Girl. Where do you fall on the Amy is a sociopath versus misunderstood spectrum? I don't think anyone is really on the misunderstood end of the spectrum, but if you are, let us know. You can get in touch with us a couple different ways. You can drop us an email, or you can contact us via Twitter or Facebook. DMs on both those. Our handle is the same for all three. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. You can also on Twitter and Facebook check our feed every 2 weeks or week in April. We have links to our newest episodes. If you're not a social media person, because you know that leaves a paper trail, and Amy wouldn't like that, you can. Find us on most of your major podcast providers, specifically Apple Podcasts, and also Alexa. If you say to your smart speaker, Alexa, play the latest episode of You Show Me Yours, she will. If you're at any of the podcast providers, we would love if you would rate, review, subscribe, follow, whatever the parlance is. If you subscribe and follow, you get the latest episodes right in your queue. And if you like, review, etc., that helps other people find us more easily. We have new episodes every other Wednesday, so that means 2 weeks from today, there'll be a new episode in your queue. During April, we had new episodes every week, but this is the last Wednesday of April. So I think it's 2 weeks, or maybe next week, I'm not sure, when in May, we'll have a new episode. And Dave, do you know what we're watching for our next episode?
I'm going to actually resume dumb 90s action movie.
Oh, good. Okay.
My little experiment that I said I'd do, you know, into the summer. We're going to do the Sly Stallone classic Demolition Man.
Oh, okay.
A lot of memes and stuff from this, a lot of things you may have seen or heard over the years. So this will be, you know, give you some context for some of that stuff. Okay. But yeah, Demolition Man, dumb action movie. 90s.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely a departure. Yeah. All right, then. We will see you next time with Demolition Man. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is uplifting electronic indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io. This is like the least David Fincher movie.
Okay.
Well, maybe Zodiac is, but yeah.
I was gonna say, the first Fincher movie that I saw was Fight Club, and so now if there aren't subliminal penises in it, it doesn't feel like Fincher to me.